All right, what's up, everybody? Wes Goldberg here from Locked On Heat. Got one more thing to talk about today. We got the latest on Kevin Durant. We've got some news around the league that Kevin Durant is not only going to be traded soon, but we've got not a list of preferred destinations, but we're starting to figure out some of the destinations that could be in play here. And the Miami Heat are expected to be one of them. So let's start with the first report here. You've got Zach Lowe on his podcast reporting on some Kevin Durant trade ideas. Not reporting, but speculating about some Kevin Durant trade ideas, but then reported saying that the Miami Heat will be involved with Kevin Durant trade talks this offseason. All right. Not necessarily breaking news there. It's something that we expected, but it's good to hear if you're a Heat fan from a national insider that, yeah, the Heat are going to be in the mix for Kevin Durant. So we know that. All right. Then you've had Brian Windhorst on a couple of different ESPN spots, First Take and on Get Up on Tuesday morning, leaning pretty hard into the idea that stuff is going to be happening here really soon. He said that the NBA offseason is basically going to be happening as soon as these NBA finals are over. The champion will be crowned, and then the offseason is going to begin. He said that people like Shams and himself are going to be really busy around the NBA draft. And this isn't the first time that we've heard this kind of thing from Windhorst, who is as plugged in as anybody else in the league. All right? Make no mistake about it. Around the entire league. Windhorst knows what people are talking about, and people evidently are talking about these moves are going to be happening soon. The Phoenix Suns, it should be noted, are introducing their new head coach today on Tuesday, June 10th. Right after that is when they're expected, again, according to Windhorst, when they're expected to start really exploring the Kevin Durant trade market, talking with Durant, talking with his representation, and trying to get something done. That's what this sounds like, okay? We've got our head coach figured out. We've got that settled. Now let's move on to the next order of business, trading Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's getting traded. Everybody in the league knows it. Kevin Durant is getting traded. What we don't know yet is where. We still don't know exactly where. The Suns don't know where it is. Kevin Durant doesn't know where he's going to go, even though he's telling people around him, apparently, according to some reports, that he thinks he could end up in San Antonio. We'll see. I think there's a ton of stuff, a ton of noise right now. But through all the noise, you start sifting around, and you could squint and start to figure out, okay, I could start seeing through the smoke here. These are the teams that are going to come knocking, at least for Kevin Durant. We know the Miami Heat. We know that they're going to make that phone call. We know that they've prepared a package. We know that they talked before the trade deadline in February. Okay, we know all of these things. The other teams that are being mentioned are the San Antonio Spurs, which Durant reportedly told somebody close to him that he thinks he could end up in San Antonio. Again, I don't know how much I make of that. The New York Knicks, but they're sort of in a situation that Phoenix had been for the last month or so, where they don't have a head coach and they're not really sure what they're doing. I don't know how much that matters for the Knicks. If ownership and general management have determined already, hey, we want Kevin Durant, then maybe they just trade for Kevin Durant and figure out the coach after that, or maybe it doesn't matter in terms of the order of operations for them. I don't know. But the Knicks will be there, the Spurs, the Heat, Minnesota apparently made calls in February before the trade deadline. Are they another team that gets in the mix here? These are the teams that I keep kind of coming back to, that you keep hearing. Miami, New York, Minnesota, San Antonio. And then you've got some other teams that are sort of out there floating around, more in the rumor mill and as opposed to direct reports. Will the Houston Rockets get involved? I think that's a big thing to consider because the Rockets can pretty much beat any offer, but according to the reporting, they are reluctant to get in on the Kevin Durant stuff. That's not a team that looks at 37-year-old Kevin Durant with their young core and they're like, yeah, we really want to get involved in KD. So I think that might be determined more on the price than anything else. And we also know that there's going to be other teams that surprise us and get in the mix, right? Do the Denver Nuggets try to do anything? I played with the Nuggets on the trade machine a couple times. It's really hard to figure out a Durant trade that makes any sense for Denver. Do the Warriors try to get back involved? The reporting out of Golden State is probably not, that after making the Jimmy Butler trade, they kind of figured, yeah, we're probably not going to be back in on the KD business. He turned us down in February, reportedly. So maybe this is not something we want to do. The teams that are sort of on the cusp, trying to make a big move, make a move for Kevin Durant. I think about Detroit. I'm thinking about Atlanta. I'm thinking about Toronto. I'm thinking about Philadelphia potentially. I'm thinking about the Clippers, the Grizzlies. Like, what are these teams, Sacramento, what are these teams trying to do? And what are they willing to put in for Kevin Durant? These are all the big questions. Now, there is something that I think the Miami Heat have that very few other teams have when it comes to making a Kevin Durant trade, and why I still think it is extremely viable, maybe more viable than some of the other superstar trades that have been bandied about with Miami Heat fans over the last couple of years. I'll tell you about that here in a second, but first I wanted to tell you about DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. What's your go-to move after an epic game? Are you ordering wings and reliving the highlights? Imagine being rewarded with a free food just because somebody went off for 50 points. Here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day with a $20 order and the code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. Back to the Miami Heat and their pursuit of Kevin Durant here. Here's what I think the Heat can offer that other teams cannot offer. But I'll start with what the picture of the package could look like. And I'm going to quote Zach Lowe here, who said something like, hey, there's a Terry Rozier, Andrew Wiggins salary combo that can get them in the door for Durant. And then they're probably going to have to get rid of Jovic or Jaquez in that deal and maybe some draft capital. He also mentioned that the Heat will fight like hell to keep Kel'el Ware out of the deal. We also know that Phoenix, wants a center. They're looking for a long-term answer at that spot. Let's remember, too, that they have Devin Booker under contract. There's reports that they might offer him a 2-year extension this summer, and then he could take it. So there's no indication at all that they're going to be moving off of Devin Booker. It looks like, hey, let's move Durant, try to flesh out the roster around Booker. And if you got Booker, you're going to need a center. Phoenix is a team that's still very much in win now mode, despite the fact that they're trading Kevin Durant. So keep that in mind when it comes to building these packages. This is not a team looking to rebuild or take a huge major step back. If anything, they're trying to trade one of their stars for depth around their current star, Devin Booker. But the Heat are going to fight like hell to keep Kel'el Ware out of the deal. Zach Lowe said it. We know that that's true here, right? Again, the Heat had conversations with Phoenix before the trade deadline. I heard that Phoenix asked for a ton. I don't know what specifically it was. Frankly, I'm not sure it ever got down that path of X, Y, Z is what we want. This is what the trade package looks like. I think that there were initial conversations and that Miami and Phoenix were way too far apart, and any of those kinds of conversations, any sort of construction of a deal, any framework of a deal, they were way too far apart, and conversations never really went more beyond that. So, but they were asking for Kel'el Ware in February, and Miami said, no chance. Let's talk again this summer. And they're going to talk again this summer. And Phoenix will ask for Kel'el Ware again. And I don't know what Miami says. We've done a couple of pods and covered this on a few recent episodes about whether or not the Heat should or should not include Kel'el Ware in a trade package. But that wouldn't be the first option. Miami would try to get a deal done without trading Kel'el Ware. And whether or not that means including Jaquez or Jovic or multiple draft assets or something like that, then you start getting on this sliding scale of, okay, well, if it's Jovic and 3 first-round picks, would we be better off just moving Ware and 1 first-round pick? That's sort of the calculus that you start getting into if you're Miami's front office, right? And then that's when negotiations start taking place with Phoenix. But here's the one part that Zach Lowe left out, on his podcast, and that I haven't really heard enough of in talking about any sort of general concept of a Kevin Durant trade. Everybody keeps talking about a Kevin Durant trade is going to have to include multiple teams, such as Brooklyn, that could take on salary in a Kevin Durant trade. So you've got Durant and let's call it Minnesota, for instance, right? Kevin Durant gets traded to Minnesota. Minnesota trades a bunch of stuff back to Phoenix, but then they also trade some stuff over to Brooklyn. Just dump salary on Brooklyn, so that way Phoenix isn't taking as much money back, and that therefore they're able to get under the second apron. Phoenix has to get, if you're trading Kevin Durant and you're Phoenix, you have to get under that second apron. You have to. That is a non-negotiable in the trade. If you're trading Durant, you're doing it so that you can make your team cheaper and you can create flexibility to build around Devin Booker long term. That's the idea. It's a non-negotiable. You have to get under the second apron. It is the number one thing you are doing in a Kevin Durant trade. More than draft picks, more than a star player coming back or a big time player, rotation piece coming back, more than any of that, get under the second apron. So that's why you have a team like Brooklyn sitting there, the only team with major cap space, sitting there being like, okay, we'll help you, but now we can name our price. And that's the tough part. In building these 3-4 team deals, multi-team scenarios is, how does every team get what they want out of that trade? Satisfied to the point of pulling the trigger. How does every team get what they want? And Brooklyn is sitting there with so much leverage. And by the way, they could also be waiting on another dominoes to fall. If Milwaukee moves Giannis, Brooklyn can get involved in that. If there's another team that's trying to get out of the second apron, if Boston starts moving their guys, Brooklyn could get involved in that. Brooklyn has all the cards, and I don't know that they're in a rush to make that decision because they have such great leverage in this. They could kind of hold up any deal that involves them based on the fact that they could say, okay, we like this, but we kind of want to see what's going on over here. Like, what's Boston doing? What's Milwaukee's plan here? We're not going to use up all of our cap space before we know what they're doing, because there could be a better opportunity over there in that kind of deal. And that's where I think Miami has a huge advantage here, is that they could provide cap relief without having to include that third team. And that's where Duncan Robinson's contract comes in. 50% guaranteed at about $20 million a year. And as long as this deal is done before the end of June, which is when Brian Windhorst says all of these things are basically going to be happening, any team acquiring Duncan Robinson can waive that contract and save 50% of that contract against the cap. So $10 million against the cap. That's enough to get Phoenix under the second apron. Miami could do it without the third team by including Duncan Robinson. They could say, here's Andrew Wiggins or Terry Rozier, your choice. Phoenix, you pick. Phoenix would say, we'll take Terry Rozier because his contract expires after the year. We don't have to worry about it. Or maybe they like Rozier for whatever reason. Or they could say, let's just take the better player. We're going to go ahead and take Wiggins, figure out the rest later. He's also got a player option after this year. Maybe he walks away anyway. Or maybe we like to bring him back. My guess is they take Wiggins, whatever they decide. They take Wiggins or Rozier plus Duncan Robinson. And then you get into that sliding scale of young players plus draft capital. Jaquez, Jovic, Ware, the 3 first-round picks that Miami's able to move, including the 20th pick in this June's draft. You get in that sliding scale, different combinations, whatever works. That's where the negotiations take place. But Miami can offer that as a concept of a package and say, here it is. No need to get those other teams involved. No need. Minnesota does not. There's other contracts like Duncan Robinson's. Minnesota doesn't have one. New York doesn't have one. San Antonio does not have one. Houston does not have one. Miami has one with a big chunk of non-guaranteed money there available. They have one. And if Kevin Durant says, I'm cool going to Miami, I'll sign the extension there, Heat culture, play with Spo, play with Bam, play with Tyler Hero, that sounds good. If everybody's down, I think the Heat have that trump card in a potential deal that says you don't have to worry about getting those other teams involved. By the way, maybe you still do, and we figure out some other things, and you like a deal even more. But you could deal with us, and we can get this thing done, and you can move on, and you can get under that second apron, which is your top priority. That's the thing that's not getting talked about enough when you hear the national people talk about the Kevin Durant trade, is the idea that they have to get under that second apron, and that there are other ways beyond getting those third teams involved that can help Phoenix get that done. It's why I think the Miami Heat are a legitimately real landing spot, potentially, for Kevin Durant. It'll be fascinating to see where these conversations go over the next couple of weeks. This is it for me here, at least for this little episode piece. We'll be back tomorrow with Keith Smith from Spotrac to talk more about Miami's offseason, what a Davion Mitchell new contract could look like, what a Nikola Jovic extension can look like, what a Tyler Hero extension could look like, and all of Miami's options. Keith Smith was on with us last summer, basically predicted the entire Heat offseason. We'll see if he's able to do it again this time around. But for now, thanks for tuning in to Locked On Heat.